It's felt like an eternity, but we are finally approaching the end of this utter hellscape of a year that is 2020, and you don't need us to retread this old traumatic ground, but we're here now, and the end is in sight. Well, the end of this year, anyway. Odds are likely that 2021 will be just as terrible, but at least we'll have some shiny next-gen consoles to protect us, right? In any era of gaming, it's pretty standard that plenty of games will go overlooked, underrated, or simply just not get the traction they deserve, but given the circumstances of 2020, it's felt like even more games have been victim to this than others. So, with that in mind, we have compiled a list of the most underrated games of 2020 so far, in no particular order because how do you determine how underrated something is? In Titanfall 2 integers with sleeping dogs metrics? Nobody knows, and frankly, we're just going to slap an arbitrary number on things until the day we die. But if you have any other suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. 10. Astro's Playroom. How could a game that just came out be underrated, you ape-headed idiots? You screech, your finger ready to slap that dislike button off the face of the planet. Firstly, ouch, but also because Astro's Playroom makes a good case for being one of the best launch games of all time, especially as it's free. Even if it is free, you get the impression that people will overlook Playroom as just a little tech demo, some silly demo for the DualSense that's not even worth bothering with. But in actual fact, and this might get our gamer card revoked, it's already one of the better games of the last 5 years. It's so good. Packed to the brim with PlayStation callbacks, collectibles, and just endless charm, Astro's Playroom gives us plenty of hope for how brilliant a full sequel to Astro Bot Rescue Mission could be. That's also an underrated game that you need to bust out the PSVR for. Trust us. 9. BPM Bullets Per Minute. If you want to be bowled over by a tongue twister of a genre name, then try this. Rhythm action first person shooter roguelike. That's the Cliff Notes version of BPM Bullets Per Minute, which essentially combines the gameplay of huge arena shooters like Serious Sam 4 with the karaoke minigame from the Yakuza series. It's Doom Eternal for DJs, I guess. Initially only available on PC, but a console launch set for some time in the future, BPM sees you choosing your own Valkyrie to descend into the bowels of hell to lay waste to its plentiful demons, all in time with the music. Whether it's dodging, shooting, or reloading, all are done in time with the beat. While the game has found some success on PC already, that impending console launch should hopefully allow BPM to get the recognition it deserves. Number 8. Zombie Army 4 Dead War. Rebellion's games have always managed to provide some cheap and cheerful laughs, with the Zombie Army series being no exception. A spin-off to the Sniper Elite series, Zombie Army took the action of sniping Nazis in the dick and improved it by making them zombies. Now there's hundreds of them to massacre, and the game will even offer cinematic slow-mo shots for certain kills. You love to see it. Zombie Army 4 Dead War builds on the previous entries, creating more of a fully fledged standalone game than just Sniper Elite Undead Edition, with weapon upgrades and perks, new items to unlock, and plenty more levels to dig into. Rebellion are planning to support the game with more post-launch content than what's currently on offer, so if you're looking for a new 4-player horde shooter, this one is a pretty safe bet. 7. Maneater. 2020 looks like it's going to be a great year for RPGs, with the likes of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Baldur's Gate 3 in Early Access, Wasteland 3, and more. That isn't even counting upcoming titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Yakuza Like a Dragon either, but allow us to remind you of a certain shark PG that was much better than it had any right to be. Maneater. As a genetically altered shark, you're out for blood against the shark hunter that murdered your mother, which is motivation enough to tear chunks out of hundreds of innocent beachgoers if you ask me. With surprisingly enjoyable combat and gameplay, plenty of gore, and often hilarious voiceover from SNL alum Chris Parnell, Maneater is an adventure that's worth dipping your toe in. But just be careful, you don't want that toe getting ripped off. 6. Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions. Currently, the gaming world is heavily preoccupied with FIFA 21, the latest installment of EA's long-running football series, but if the past iteration is anything to go by, the gameplay is going to be incredibly disappointing and the Ultimate Team microtransactions will be hugely invasive. It's time to consider an alternative, so why not have a look at Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions? Based on the Captain Tsubasa anime and manga, Rise of New Champions offers a retelling of one of the series' biggest arcs, while also including a brand new story arc to boot with your own created character. The gameplay is more of an arcadey throwback, especially when compared to FIFA's simulation-heavy approach, and it's by no means flawless, but Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions offers hours of fun regardless of whether you're a fan of the original source material. 5. Hotshot Racing. Another Game Pass game that might have slipped a lot of people by is Hotshot Racing, a delightful throwback to the arcade racing of games like Daytona USA, Virtua Racing, and others besides. While the low poly visuals might look bad to many players when compared alongside the likes of Forza Horizon 4, Hotshot Racing's gameplay remains just as satisfying. Players can choose from one of 8 characters, each with 5 classes of car that offer their own stats and specializations, meaning players can experiment heavily with the game to find the car and character combo that works for them. Featuring fantastic drift-based handling and the ability to earn some boost for higher speeds, Hotshot Racing is some simple, wholesome racing fun. 4. Maid of Sker. First-person pacifist horror games have always been incredibly popular, thanks in no small part to the success of games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent and Outlast. Heck, we even had a new Amnesia game to play this year. With a crowded genre, it can be hard for new blood to make headway, leading to titles like Maid of Sker failing to set the world alight. On paper, Maid of Sker has everything a decent horror game needs to succeed, with a story based on real-life myth and legend and a tried and tested gameplay formula that's raked in the big bucks before. Unfortunately, Maid of Sker has gone somewhat unnoticed since launch, which is a real shame. Maid of Sker was available as part of Games with Gold. Remember that? Microsoft don't. Ha 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 ha. So it may have earned itself a bigger audience than at launch. 3. A Fold Apart. I'd imagine that when Lightning Rod Games were initially developing A Fold Apart, they didn't realise the real-world similarities that the game would hold once it was released. An indie puzzle game that's available on pretty much every platform, A Fold Apart explores a couple who follow career paths that lead them in the opposite directions, though they remain committed to a long-distance relationship. Given the effects of lockdown during the past 6 months, A Fold Apart's main story of a relationship where both parties can't see each other has become something of a reality for many people. If you're looking for something a little bit more hopeful that still tangentially acknowledges certain realities, A Fold Apart is worth checking out. We could all do with a little more hope these days, right? 2. Going Under. It's not that Going Under hasn't been well received, because it was. Once the review embargo dropped, many outlets had a lot of positive things to say regarding Aggro Crab's roguelike, ourselves included. Its accurate satire of startup culture combined with excellent dungeon crawling gameplay made for an engaging combination. So why is it underrated? The fact is, Going Under was overshadowed by the launch of Hades a week prior. Another dungeon crawling roguelike, Hades blew everyone's collective socks off when it launched, garnering near or even perfect scores from a variety of different outlets. It is definitely in the running as a Game of the Year contender and is arguably one of the best roguelikes ever made, but its launch has surely impacted the release of Going Under. Still, once you're done trying to escape the underworld in Hades, consider starting an unpaid internship with Going Under. And at number 1, Samurai Jack: Battle Through Time. Action-adventure games based on established properties always seem to fly under the radar, with games like Platinum's Transformers Devastation not quite having the same impact as something like Bayonetta. Devastation is still a banger though, and you check it out if you haven't already, but the logic still stands and we're getting sidetracked. Samurai Jack: Battle Through Time fell victim to the same curse, as the hack and slasher based on the popular cartoon hasn't generated as much buzz as the iconic series that came before it. It is a shame really, as while it might bear some flaws in its execution, it's still a wholly enjoyable romp. Yes, it's not a complex game in the slightest, and the character action is nowhere near DMC levels, but for what it is, it's a few brilliant hours of fun. Fans of the series should really check this one out, and even if you haven't been back to the past in years, it's such a great nostalgia trip. And there you have it, that wraps up our 10 most underrated games of 2020. As ever, we pass the question back to you. Do you agree with the list? Do you disagree? Are there any that you think that we missed out? Please do sound off in the comments down below. We are genuinely excited to see what you think about this list. But with that said and done, we come to the end of this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please consider hitting that like button, slapping that subscribe button, punching in the guts that notification bell until it yields, and following all of the social media on screen now. We hope to see you in the next one, but until then, cuckoo.